Welcome to Chief Everything Officer, a podcast for entrepreneurs who do it all. We are sponsored by Juntobot, an impact-oriented venture school and studio focused on designing and scaling startup ecosystems for the future.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Juntobot podcast. This is Devin Voorsanger, CEO of Juntobot. Today, we are over the moon to have Dr. Malcom Tyson, the Managing Director of Stratascension, an innovation consultancy out of the Maryland area. He's doing some great work in the Maryland area. He's an incredible supporter of Juntobot and of ecosystems all over the country. I'm going to let him introduce himself, but Dr. Tyson, thank you so much for being on board.
Thank you so much for having me, Devin. I'm so excited to be here. And thank you for the brief introduction. I am Malcom Tyson, the Managing Director of Stratascension. We are an innovation consultancy. We help managers build innovative cultures and create innovative companies. And we've been doing this for probably about, 8 years. And just, driving innovation ecosystems around, as you said, around the country, as well as in my home state of Maryland.
One of the things I find is really fascinating is these innovation consultancies and innovation strategy work is such a unique, intersection of careers that people arrive at it in very different ways. How did you find your way into innovation consultancy, into this type of work?
Yeah, it's a fascinating point that you make, because innovation and strategy are typically housed in two different parts of the business, right? You got innovation, which is counter to operations, and you got strategy, which is dead on with operations. And so my last job was, I was director of business operations at NASA. NASA Goddard Space Flight Center here in Maryland, and pretty large contract. It was about 250 engineers, technician type people working on James Webb Space Telescope, and they did some work on Hubble. But a part of that contract, we had a little piece, probably about $25 million, but it was 125 small to medium-sized businesses, right? And they could do amazing things, right? Build widgets. It was truly rocket scientists, right? And during that process of working with them, I would always talk to them because I was managing their subcontracts, or my team was managing their subcontract. They would always talk to me about, Malcom, we have some amazing people that can do anything, but NASA's like our only client. Or they have the facilities to build cars or build, electronic vehicles, autonomous vehicles, but NASA's our only client, right? And so I was like, well, what is that problem, right? What is that problem? And mind you, I'm handling HR, I'm handling their subcontract, I'm really neck deep in operations. But what I come to find is it's an innovation problem, right? It's especially for small businesses, because most small businesses don't innovate proactively. They're very reactionary because of resources, because of focus, whatever the reason. That's the way they do things.
Yeah.
And so this was a challenge. And what happened in my role at that government contractor is, if you're familiar with government contracting, they're finite, right? They're you go sink and then you swim, you eat or you die, right? And so got to a point where we submitted the follow-on contract. We didn't win. The awardee decided to keep me and my team on, which was a blessing, but I had 9 months, right? They gave me 9 months to train the person that I was going to be replacing me. And so I thought that was divine intervention. I was already burnt out. I was already kind of like, looking for my exit strategy. I was like, it fell in my lap. Yeah. And I decided to, go back to school, get my PhD. And my PhD is in business and technology with a focus on strategy and innovation because of that. And my dissertation was on innovativeness in knowledge intensive business service firms. So the engineering firms, the accounting firms, the attorneys, how do they become more innovative, right? And just to be clear, innovation is a broad term. With your PhD, you have to really nail down, like really niche down. And so I focused on innovativeness. Innovativeness is that quality within an organization that allows them to produce new ideas, products, and services and commercialize them. That's the key. You got to be able to commercialialize them, right? Like, what the hell? What's the point of an idea, a new product?
I was part of the NSF court, and it was I was one of their adjunct professors, and one of the things I found fascinating about that was it's such a needed program, because it was they did such a great job of teaching professors and teaching PhDs who just invented something, how to commercialize it, and it's a completely different mindset shift. But how many of those professors just looked at you like, that makes no sense? Like, no, it really does make sense. And then they'd be like, I think you're wrong. And you're like, I'm not wrong. And they're like, well, I'm the expert. And you're like, but you're not really the expert. Like, yes, I am. I actually wrote the book. Like, here's the book. I wrote the book on it. I'm the expert. I'm like, but okay. And you're like having this conversation with PhDs, like, you're 100 times smarter than me, but I'm telling you, your landlord still requires money.
Exactly. And so, it's one of those things, and that's don't get me on my soapbox about PhDs and how counterproductive it is. It's all theory. It's all about adding to the body of knowledge. Whereas we have small business owners, we have medium-sized business owners who are struggling. They don't need theory. They need practical, active things they can do. And that was my mindset going into this. Like, how do we create something that is useful, not for going to sleep at night because you're reading a 1,000-page dissertation, something they can use in their business to help them grow and to help them be successful and live out their dreams that prompted them to start the business in the first place. So, so that was kind of my impetus. I started really digging into what it is, and what the driver of innovativeness in these businesses is: customer experience and employee experience. If you can dial in and learn how to dial into those in your business, you'll be constantly. Now, this is in a situation where, because you might be saying, well, Malcolm, what if I have the business owner is innovative naturally? That's cool. But what about if he's not? Or what about if she's not? What if she's an operations person? How do you become innovative? You got to dial into those two areas and really tune in. And
so for the listeners, I'm sorry, can we go back and just clarify what those two areas are?
So customer experience, right? All the interactions that a prospect has with your business, from brand to product to fulfillment to post-sale, like all of those areas, you got to know how you're showing up, right? Because with buyers today, they're so savvy. If you don't have a great customer experience, they'll just go to somebody else, right? Same thing with employee experience. We had, I guess, over the last year or so, or even before that, we had this great resignation because people are like, hold up, you don't care about me. As an employee, you don't care about me. So why should I stay here? And so as a management team, as a leadership group, you need to be dialing into because your employees are your greatest source of innovation. Your customers are your second greatest source of innovation. So you need to be dialing it, like really dialing in. And so a lot of the work that I do is for the medium-sized companies that I deal with, we kind of touch on both. But for the smaller ones who don't necessarily have the employees are themselves, I focus on the customer experience. And so that kind of drove me to really, I mean, I wanted to help the small businesses, but I see it's a broader, field to work in.
Well, that's one of the things I've found to be super helpful is no big business started out as a big business.
Mhm.
You know, they all started out as small business. If you understand small business and then you start looking through what's unblocking you from getting to the level of complexity that you want to be at, then you like that's the kernel of a good business all the way
Mhm.
through. And then there's complex things, and you reach that, you reach the crossing the chasm of
Yeah.
you know,
The
the
depth,
reverse
the chasm
negative
of depth.
versus
Right,
being,
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
you reach the Christensen's innovator's dilemma, where the things that
Mhm.
made you good no longer
Mhm.
are now what's holding you back. You have those things as you get bigger, but you still the kernel of what made you like. So when you focus on small bit, I always found focusing on small businesses made me more innovative in working with large businesses. I would
Mhm.
work with major Fortune 100 companies.
Yeah.
I would explain stuff to them that, 50-person, 100-person firms were like, yeah, duh. What, like,
Right.
wow, thanks, Devin, for coming from the future with your new thing called the CRM, and I'd be
Right.
like, and I would explain it to like an oncology drug company, and
Yeah.
they would just be like, future? What? How would you do that? And
Yeah.
my boss would be like, you can't, dude, you can't go there. Like
Yeah.
that's too far forward for them. They're
Yeah.
still using paper mock-ups for their ads. I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
2018. They're using paper still. Like, I don't
Yeah.
understand. And it's like, I always find that the starting small and the innovation in a small business is such a kernel of the deep kernel of innovation.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think, once I became an entrepreneur myself, I started
Mhm.
to really see that and really understand, that without the small businesses in your region and without a thriving small business ecosystem, like
Mhm.
your economy is in danger. Like
Yeah.
you really are like if you're not if these small businesses aren't growing and producing jobs, you're really in a tough spot. And so I didn't know that until I started to, really become an entrepreneur myself. And, everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. Well, I shouldn't say everybody, but there's this desire to be your own boss. But
Yeah.
there's a lot that comes with it, right? There's a
Nobody
lot that
wants to be
comes.
told what to do,
Exactly. Exactly.
but they
Exactly.
want somebody to tell them what needs to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a it's very interesting. I find
Yes.
that to
Yes.
be, nobody wants you to tell them what to do, but if you don't tell them what to do, you're a bad boss. And I'm like, but I thought you didn't want anybody to tell you what to do, so I gave you
Yeah.
autonomy. You're like, well, you're obviously a bad boss. You didn't tell me what to do. And you're like, but like,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it's I think, and I'm learning this too, working with my team, like it's the way that you tell them, right? And it's how
Mhm.
you couch it, it's how you position it, it's how you say it. Like I've
Mhm.
had, just speaking of bad bosses, I've had people tell me I'm great in one-on-one conversations,
Mhm.
but I need to build my confidence when talking to a larger group. I'm like, what the hell? What's the difference? Like, what's the difference?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's just, I think they were trying to say something else. To this day, I don't know really what they were trying to say to me,
Yeah.
but I just didn't receive it right. And so whatever message they were trying to get to me, it just went
Right over your
because
head.
they
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it didn't
Yeah.
resonate with me. So
Yeah.
that employee
I mean,
experience.
yeah. Well, but that's the thing, is that like, how do you unlock the ownership
Mhm.
without getting bopped in the nose. I like that. I once had I used to work in academia,
Mhm.
and I had a student who was presenting to the leader of the college I was working in, and this kid, I mean, in all fairness, this kid was incredibly insulting. His presentation was about how out of touch we were, and
Okay.
how
It's like a
and
punch
how
in the
we
nose,
needed
right?
to get that. And we were like, and I'm just like, oh boy. And the president, the head of the college is like, what the, Devin, what are you teaching these kids? Like, I'm like, look, we're teaching them how to spread their wings,
Yeah. Yeah.
and as we teach them how to spread their wings, they're gonna bop us in the nose with it every once in a while as they're like trying to figure out how to flex these wings. You know, I'm not saying that's what we want them to do, but you know, he's trying to nail. He's using the tools incorrectly, but at least he's using the tools. Did you see how great of a presentation was? I was like, oh my God, this is so awful. I'm gonna get fired. I have never danced. I've never danced that hard in my life. But in all seriousness, that whole concept of unlocking the innovation, unlocking the ownership over a problem, over a solution, over the outcome, and not just the process, you know, but then making sure that it doesn't get to the point where like you're like, why are you sharpening a pitchfork at work? You know, like they start getting into this. Well, you're obviously an awful boss because the outcome we want is this, and you're not good at it. And you're like, of course I'm not good at it, dude. Nobody's good at it. We're trying to get, you know, like I'm a human being. I never said I was George Washington.
Right.
Yeah. So
I mean, it's so interesting, and I'm also like a student of leadership, and you know, I see it all the time. If there's not a foundation of, I say two things, accountability and candor. Like if there's not that, if you're talking, if we're like, you're my manager or supervisor and you're talking to me and like, I don't trust you because you haven't been straight up with me. And I see that you haven't really been accountable to yourself. What's going to make me do anything? What's going to make me other than what's in my job description, right? You know what I'm saying? Like,
you start to pull back, and now you're making me super uncomfortable.
Exactly.
I'm like, oh my God, am I that guy? Wait, have I been candid enough with my staff? Am I being accountable? But those are the hard questions you have to ask yourself, because and you have to be clear that the answer almost always is going to be yes, you're that guy. You know, yes, you are not a good enough leader. Yes, you are not candid enough. Yes, you are not holding yourself accountable enough. And you know, and who's going to fire you? Nobody. You're the boss. So if it fails, that's the accountability. So like you got to bring it and be your own toughest, you know.
Exactly. And
people are like, no, I don't need to. That's why I'm a boss, so that nobody needs to tell me. No, everybody, the whole world is telling you suck.
I mean, and I had a mentor tell me, and it stuck with me for a long time. And I evaluate leaders at this point. Like, does this leader care about me? Can I trust them? And do they care about my career? Like, those are the three questions I'm asking as I'm talking to a supervisor all throughout my career, right? Like, do they care about me? Can I trust them? Do they care about my career? And then if the answer to any of those is no, then you're going to have a disconnect. And there's levels of disconnect and levels of disengagement. But if you're trying to maximize productivity, which includes discretionary time, discretionary ideas, that's where innovation is. It's not in their day-to-day work. It's when we got this problem we've been dealing with for a while. Let's take some time and brainstorm about it. That's where innovation is. It's not in the day-to-day. It's outside of that. And
let me ask you a question about that. So I 100% agree with you. I'm not challenging your idea. I'm thinking
challenging.
But like, it's not that I think that you're wrong. It is specifically, I'm thinking about a challenge I see, which is you want them to be innovative, right? But you also are like, I need to get this done, and this needs to be done, and the quality of what your output is not good enough. I needed it here. You're not. You don't realize the excellence I expect from you, and I understand that you can provide. You think you can only provide a 5. I know you can provide a 9.
Right.
Bring it. This isn't good enough. and then then they're like, okay, well, I'll just do what you say. And it shuts down their innovation engine. It shuts down their creativity because they got stomped on when they tried to bring something. And you're like, well, no, that's not. It's just like your innovation wasn't channeled in the right way. Like, how do you manage that? How, as a boss, as a coach, like, how do you handle that?
So I think it goes back to the way that you deliver that message, right? So that's one thing, right? And we'll get back to that. But I think there has to be the foundation of accountability and candor. Like, it has to be there. If the relationship has been fractured for a while and then you try to do this, it's not going to be received well, right? But if the origination of that relationship was based on accountability and candor, and they know that you care about them, you trust them, and you're giving them constructive criticism, you're not just like dogging them, then I think it'll be better received, right? It all starts on that foundation. And the challenge with the Great Resignation, the challenge with all of the things that employees are dealing with right now is they haven't afforded themselves the opportunity to lay that foundation down. And then sometimes it takes time, right? Sometimes it does take time, but without that foundation, it's hard. So let's say you have a situation where the relationship, it wasn't fractured. It just wasn't like, equal business stature, super open. They just came, did their work. You're doing your thing. They bring you something and it's like, you know what, this isn't quite right. And so that's where I think it actually could be the start of how you lay down that foundation, right? But I don't know if leaders are actually taking the time to really understand their employees, like really understand them, right? Whether it be through the DISC behavior, Myers-Briggs, whatever, you got to get to know your folks at a deeper level because some of them are, they're amazing, they're dynamic, they are weird, right? But we got to know that about them. Some people, like I was a coach, basketball coach for a long time. Some kids, and Coach K always talks about this, some kids need a kick in the ass, some kids need a hug. And some kids are in between. To motivate them, you got to figure that out. You got to figure that out. And so in a situation like the scenario you described, if the accountability and candor hasn't been laid down, that's one thing. If it has been, I think it'll be well received. If it hasn't been, you got to probably try to figure out your employee a little bit better. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're trying to figure out your employee or your mentee, I'm thinking about like those people who are investors who have invested in a company. I'm thinking about those people who are CEO and have a founding team, or running an innovation program and have a bunch of different startups in it. One thing that I'm a big fan of, and I champion this idea that there's a ROI in diverse viewpoints, and that if you're not seeking out and enfranchising diverse viewpoints, you're failing from a fiduciary responsibility standpoint. It's not an ethical standpoint. It's not a moral standpoint. It's not a social impact standpoint. It's a fiduciary responsibility standpoint. And one of the challenges that I'm always trying to figure out is how do you, like, seeking out, I personally think I've gotten that relatively nailed. It's basically not fishing in the same ponds as everybody else. I don't recruit in Ivy Leagues. There's a filtering mechanism, which I find basically group thinks everybody into a certain way of thinking. And you came from a certain background, or you had to pretend like you were from a certain background, or you have to figure out how to fit into a certain background in order to get into Ivy Leagues. Other institutions allow for that different, but once they're in the organization, how do you get to know them and how do you support them? I'm thinking about, like, I had somebody on my team and very different from the rest of the team. And I very much wanted to enfranchise her. And I failed. And I don't no, I still am struggling with, did I fail from helping the rest of the team understand how to support her? Did I fail from she's just not the right person, right?
Yeah,
It was selection bias. Like I selected her based off a set of criteria I thought was good, but it was the wrong criteria, and she just was never going to succeed. Did I not support her? And like, how do you find that information about somebody? How do you create that support system so that unique viewpoint, which is not your own? Because if it was your own, it would just be you, and that's fine.
Right.
And then but you get much more of an ROI if I have, like, I never worked at Goddard Space Station. I don't understand those projects at all. I don't. I've never worked on a project like that. Your viewpoint and my viewpoint fundamentally different, right? And then you just get down to demographics and psychographics and like where we grew up and like the things that we learned as an 8-year-old. All those things are unique avenues of innovation. But how do I support somebody there? Like as a leader, what is your advice?
No, that's a great question. And I think we've all had those situations, Devin, where you just can't, let's just keep it simple. You just can't vibe with the person, right? Like you're just not, just for whatever reason. And so I had a similar situation, and I just, for whatever, I just couldn't get it. But, and looking back at that situation, I had my ideas about the role. I had my ideas about the person. And we call that unconscious bias, right? It's just, you have thoughts about that. And what I've done, so I work with the Predictive Index. They're a partner of mine, and they provide behavior analysis. It's totally objective. The person takes this 6-minute test, and I'll send you one, and it spits out their personality type or reference profile based on 4 areas: their independence, their extroversion, their patience, as it relates to whether they're like multiple projects at the same time, or they just need steady work, and then their formality with rules, right? And to me, I've been a partner with them since 2018, and that has been one of the most objective ways to dig deeper below the surface. Because here's the thing, and I'll tell you a story about me. When I came out of college, I went to work for KPMG. So the whole, at that time it was Big Four, right? And Cooper's Inline Brand and all that stuff. And I knew within the first 2 months that I would never be partner. Like I would never be partner, right? Like I knew it. Because I had a mentor, and they would just tell me what the partner. I was like, man, that guy is always working. He's always in the office or always on travel. And I didn't want that for my life at a early age. And so I'm so glad I was like mature enough to see that. And I didn't see a path. I didn't see a path to get there. Like I didn't know enough people to get there ever. And so
and when you ask that question, the answer is, well, you need to be comfortable with ambiguity. I'm like, that seems like I need to be comfortable with the fact that you've done no planning.
Exactly. Right. And so, I started to develop this mask, because I'm like, if I'm never going to be a partner, and I don't see a path to how I'm going to get there, I need to figure out how I'm going to do it. And so I started to put on this mask, and the mask produced within me a sort of imposter syndrome, right? I was waiting for the day that they would come and say, Malcolm, we made a mistake when we recruited you, right? And so I would just grind, right? And that, the reason why I tell that story is because people don't always show up to work as their authentic self. So what you think that you're knowing, or what you're feeling in your gut about that person, can be absolutely wrong. Right? Absolutely. So as you're trying to support this person, you're like, oh man, you might be asking some, surface level, probing questions about them to try to find out about, but they're giving you a mask. They're giving you something or giving you an answer
Yeah.
that you want to hear. You know what I mean?
Playing
Just
a character on TV that they think is the
Exactly.
character that needs to be there. Yeah.
Exactly. And so with these tools, you have an objective viewpoint that both of you can talk about, right? And that lays the foundation of accountability and candor, because you're like, you know what? According to your behavior analysis, it looks like, you know, you really are an independent thinker. You don't necessarily need to make decisions based on what I say. You can make decisions on your own, and you actually prefer to make decisions on your own, right? And so, or another person who is more team oriented. So they need to be in a team environment, right? And they need to have steady work. So these tools help us make objective decisions about our folks, as opposed to what's in our gut. I'm working with a company right now who they're hiring like 50 people in this new area of their business, and they've been doing it on their gut for so long, but they know it's not working. They got turnover in this role, this new area. It's like, why? Because we need something for everybody to grab onto that makes sense and is objective, because everybody has their own agenda. Everybody has their own view or perspective of how this role should be done. But you get someone in there that you think, again, they have the mask on in the interview, they're like top flight, and really they could be feeling imposter syndrome. They could be feeling all types of things we don't know about. Things we don't see on the surface. And so that's my answer to your question is, like, we need other tools. We can't do it on our own. We need other tools to help us with that.
So what are those tools though?
So I mentioned I'm a partner with Predictive Index. You can go to predictiveindex.com. You can go to my website. On my website, there's a behavioral analysis that you can take. It's 6 minutes, bunch of questions about what you would do in these situations. And there's also, other than Predictive Index, there's Myers-Briggs. That's the one I took a long time ago. I think I'm a judging type person or something like that. And then there's DISC. DISC is one that I think is very popular right now. I don't understand how they come up with the DISC things, and I'm sure there's some science or something that I can read about it. But I know for me, Predictive Index is science-based. Like, it's been.
I was talking to a friend of mine who's in AI, and he was talking about how his wife is a PhD, teaches up at SMU, and they're freaking out because that Chat GPT created a full grant proposal, and it's pretty good. And they're like, well, if AI is creating a grant proposal, how do you evaluate a grant proposal? And my argument to him was like, if a metal worker cuts sheet metal with scissors, how do you evaluate the metal worker? Not on the strength of his fingers, on how well he uses his tools. It's just another tool. But then he was like, oh, okay, but then what do you, are we going to get into a world where AI is creating and analyzing? And I'm like, see, the analysis makes me uncomfortable, because I can't remember whether it was Myers-Briggs or Maslow's hierarchy, that is based off of, one of the two is based off, or maybe it might be DISC, but one of those three is based off of research that was done by doing a deep dive research study off of a population. You know what that population was? It was like second-gen Swedish immigrants in the Midwest, in the Lake region in Michigan. That's it. Like a very, very monoculture, and we're basing everybody off of this one. And it's like, is that true? I mean, I'm not saying it's wrong. But it's like, at what point does it become self-fulfilling? Like, well, I'm an Aries with a Saturn rising. I don't even know astrology. Like, am I an Aries? I don't know. Or have I always had the Aries mug that says all the characteristics? And I'm like, I'm hot-tempered. Yes, I am. You know.
So I mean, you're making that's such a good point, because even as a partner, I use this tool, but I still got to do the work, right? I still got to do. Let's have the conversation. So even with this company I'm working with, they're like, hold on, this
Mhm.
person, this behavioral analysis says this, but I've worked with this person for the last 2 months. I don't see it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
a
yeah.
point where you have the conversation, right?
Mhm.
Again, it's just like you said, it's just a tool. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
a tool. It gives you some information. Let's talk
yeah.
about it. Let's see if it makes sense.
I remember, and I lost this guy's contact information, and it's one of those lost opportunities, where you're just
Hmm.
like, damn it, I wish I still had that. I met this guy at a conference, and he
Hmm.
had done a deep dive analysis into the different types of personalities needed for different skill sets.
Okay.
And he was explaining how the difference between a salesperson and an account manager.
Okay.
Like an account manager, a salesperson's a hunter. Like they want to win regardless of whether the customer is happy or not.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's like, they're kind of an a-hole, right? But they're your a-hole,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's okay because you want somebody who's going to grind and just, they don't care if you say no. They
Hmm.
don't they're gonna dig in. They don't
Mission.
care if you're sick and tired of getting their phone call. They're gonna make that second, third, fourth, fifth, eighth
Yeah.
phone call.
Yeah.
Whereas an account manager cares about being loved,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that is a fundamental difference between the two roles. And that was just
Hmm.
his presentation. And I
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
was like, that's across the board. Like there are viewpoints that make an excellent project manager
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
make
Yeah.
you awful at accounting,
Yeah.
or
Exactly. Yeah.
things that make you awesome at accounting that make you awful at account management.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I always wonder because, like, for me, I use the Min-Ambassador problem solving types.
Okay.
That's how we categorize people. But
Hmm.
then when I do my own, I'm a little bit of everything. And I was like, why is that the case? And I was talking to Bob Bassador,
Hmm.
uh, and he was like, well, let me ask you a question. Do you work on yourself, on like making yourself better? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, that's why.
Yeah.
You seek out your perceived weaknesses, and you
Hmm.
strengthen those areas. And what you've done is you've unconsciously gone through every single area and made it stronger. So you're now
Yeah.
just basically everything.
Yeah. No, that's so good because I'm similar, and maybe that's why we connect so much because in the predictive index
Beard,
behavioral
man. Don't
analysis.
make it difficult. It's the beard. It's the beard.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, so I took the analysis, the test, and I was a straight line, which they call an adapter.
Mhm.
Okay, so that means I'm situational. I can be a team player, or I can be super introverted. I can
Yeah, yeah.
be independent thinking, or like I said, a team player. I can be really patient and do steady work, or I can have a desire to do multiple things. So,
Yeah.
consultant is the perfect role for me because it
Yeah.
helps me fit into those things. And I think
Yeah.
while I talk about imposter syndrome as sort of a hindrance, I think early in my career, right now, that ability to adapt and fit in and maybe put on that mask for that time being has really helped me as I've tried to grow this business and be, offer the services.
So let's talk about this business.
Mhm.
One of the things I like to talk about is the problems we solve as individuals in our
Mhm.
career, in the service we offer
Yeah.
to the world and to people, either from a for-profit or nonprofit, or a charity perspective or a business perspective. What is your massive transformational purpose?
Yeah, and I think I like the way you kind of approach this is, the problem that we try to solve. And so when I typically try to talk to COOs,
Mhm.
and they have problems, as we kind of dug into earlier, managing the different stakeholders, managing the different relationships for all the different departments.
Mhm.
They obviously have the problems with ensuring profitability,
Mhm.
managing risk, all of those sort of things. in my world, they fall under innovativeness, right? And because innovativeness is the dialing in of, customer experience and employee experience, we're really looking at how we can solve those problems, right? And what I said in my introduction, we help managers build innovative cultures and create innovative companies. That's true, right? We're really trying to solve the innovativeness problem for them, right? And typically, as again, talking to these COOs, if they have a problem ensuring profitability, let's look at that customer experience, right? Let's try to improve the lifetime value of your customers. Maybe you're having a problem at post-sale, right? Maybe you're having a problem with fulfillment of your service to or product to that customer. You're not wowing them. They're just like, it's okay, but you need to wow them. They need to be delighted about your product and service, right? And so those are the type of things that we try to solve and create transformation. Just working with a client at the end of the year, they were a small company, and the CEO and her management team, she was about this close from closing the doors because she just kind of threw up her hands, right? They need to hire. They're in the healthcare field, and as you know, there's a shortage in hiring healthcare professionals, right? So I'm like, man, this is, and I know you're gonna ask. You want to ask?
Is it on the service side? Is it on the service side or the research side?
Service side, right? And so they're struggling trying to find qualified healthcare professionals. I'm like, yes, let's dig into this. That's a problem we want to solve, right? Because that's a national problem. We can solve it for this company. We can solve it for anybody in the world.
Yeah.
And it really was about looking at, first of all, looking at their employees and some of the infrastructure that they had set up. They couldn't hire the qualified people because their infrastructure didn't allow them to.
Yeah.
Right. They weren't organized. They didn't have the appropriate questions to pull out, whether they were hiring the right person or not. As we talked about, they didn't have objective tool to lay out, okay, what is this person really like? And they're not giving us a mask in the interview, right? So we're able to solve those problems. At the end of the day, after the end of the program that we supplied for them, they were so reinvigorated. Right. And this was to me, it was a small problem that had tremendous impact. Getting them organized, getting them focused, giving them hope to understand that this massive national problem, you can solve it with a couple of tweaks in your business. A couple of tweaks in your infrastructure and your business model would open up so many doors for you. And they were invigorated. So that you couldn't put a dollar amount in it. You couldn't put there's no way of showing how excited I was to help them. Right. Yeah. Any words I put to it was just underestimated. So that gives you what I felt inside of helping them.
So you seem pretty passionate about this.
Yeah.
So my question to you is, why? What causes you to be passionate about it? Why is it like when that client, whatever client, called you up and says, hey, sorry, we're not going to be doing business with you anymore. When life just kicks you in the teeth, when you're in bed and you're like, it's really freaking cold outside and this bed's really, really warm and nobody really cares if I sleep till 11, but you get up anyway. What pushes you to get up anyway? What pushes you to keep going? What pushes you to call a new client? Keep going. What drives that passion?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Devin. And I think it's a couple of things, right? I think I'm naturally a helping person. I like to help, right? Even my grandmama used to say, Malcolm, my helper. She always used to say, Malcolm, my helper. And so that stuck with me. So I always want to help. I've had numerous roles throughout my career, and I've always been in a position to help other people. And I think also, in addition to having that sort of helpful nature, I'm always inclined to get better, right? I always want to get better, right? And so if that means, and just sidebar here, that we were talking about roles. I have a mentor. He talks to me about all the time. He's like, your identity and your roles are two different things. right? Your identity as a man, as a person, is always a 10. You may fall short in those roles, right? As a father, as a brother, as a friend, as a businessman. You may fall short in those roles, but you're still a 10. So that means that even though today may have sucked, tomorrow could be better.
Yeah.
Right. I have a chance of making that, doing my role a little bit better tomorrow. So I'm always chasing that getting better. And then, you know, as I mentioned in my role, what really drove me to do this was I want to help small businesses. I want to help medium-sized businesses because of the larger impact they have on the community, on the region, on the state. Like, I want to be a part of that. It's exciting, but I feel like so many people talk about it. Devin, you know this, right? So many people talk about this stuff. But how many people really actually get their hands dirty?
Yes.
How many?
It drives me bonkers. How many people that I'm like, I'm not going to name names, but I know people that are like, that I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. They're bringing it. That's a really, oh, wait, you didn't write that article. You're just sharing somebody else's article. That is some, like, come up with your own thought now. Like, you know, like, come up with your own product. Stop sharing other people's stuff. You know, like, bring it.
Yeah, man. I mean, so that really is my passion, right? Let's get up and let's do something, right? And you know, if today was my last day, and I talked to my sons about this. If today was my last day, I want to make sure I'm squeezing all I can out of this day, right? Squeeze all that I can out of it, because we don't know. It might be my last day, you know? So
yeah. No, it's absolutely true. That's a very stoic approach. You know, that today might be your last day. Don't be upset about it. Just
let's
every
rock.
day treat it like fantastic. This day is gonna be the most amazing day. And when it's not your last day, it was still an amazing day.
That's right.
You know?
That's right.
And you know, what are you grateful for today? I'm grateful that I was able to take the trash out and I didn't throw my hip out when I did it. You know, I mean, honestly, the older I get, the more I'm grateful for.
Exactly. I'm laughing, but I'm like, you know what?
That's true. I bent over, picked up a sock, didn't throw out my back today. Super grateful. You know,
super grateful.
But like that living
That's
every
a great
day.
Hashtag.
Yeah. So when you're doing this work, what do you know about your customers? One thing that I like to tell my staff and all my mentees is there's only two things. Like, great, go get your trademarks, go get your patents. Right? Protection is important. But in a world where Shenzhen exists and they can literally take your product in the front door and out the back door and create 100,000 unique versions of what you just created, the only thing that really can't be stolen is what you know about your customers and what your customers know about you. So from what you know about your customers, or what you know about the people who have this problem, who are they? What do they want? What do they need?
I mean, I think it goes back to, at least for me, it goes back to those entrepreneurs. And let me give you a little bit more insight. So I focus on small and medium sized, but I also focus on those early stage businesses, right? The early stage startups. And so the more I've gotten into early stage and startup, that ecosystem, I really started to understand it's about a dream. It's about a dream. It's about something within them, whether it be in their work, they saw a gap that nobody was trying to fill, or they just woke up one morning and said, you know what? I need to create an NFT for restaurants, right? Like they have these ideas, these dreams that are driving them. Just like you said, the passion that I have to be better. These entrepreneurs, and this carries them from the day they got that idea to the time that they either exit or sell a business, right? It carries them through. And that is one common thing, right? Whether they decide to get to their, even in the large corporations that I may be dealing with a business unit, they have a dream, they have a perception, they have a perspective that they this innovativeness problem is preventing them from realizing that dream or that perspective. And that's where we come in, right? We try to help them solve that problem with their dream. It's all about their dream. It's all about getting their perspective done, bringing that perspective to life. And so if you think about, I'm a big cartoons guy. I love Marvel. And think about all that it takes to get that from that idea from the comic book to get it on screen, right?
Yeah.
You know, there are problems all throughout that process.
Yeah.
All throughout that process. No matter if they have a strategy, no matter if they have the operations, if they have the experience, they're going to run into problems.
Yeah.
And what we try to do is remove those problems. We try to get rid of those problems. So we want those dreams to come to life. We want those perspectives to come to life. We want to see you have that sense of fulfillment because your dream is now a reality, right? Like that's an amazing, and as an entrepreneur, that's what you want, right? You want your dream to come to life.
So on Maslow's hierarchy, you've got that emotional want, which I think is what you're addressing here. What is their logical need? Like what is the like the just bread and butter? I got to get my rent paid. I got, what is the more on that? I have to be able to breathe and eat and poop and have sex and have a roof over my head. What is more of that logical need for them?
Yeah, I think for most of them, it's about ensuring that they're profitable, right? They want to be profitable, right?
Yeah.
It's no, you can have a dream that comes to life, but like you said, if it's not paying the rent, it's not. So obviously the dream is we want to make the dream come to life, but we want to make sure that they're profitable, right? We want to make sure that they're a thriving business. If they're not profitable, they can't create jobs. What are they really doing, right? They're not really being a driver of the economy because they're not generating any revenue, right? And so that's the biggest thing for me, right? And my customers, they want to drive their revenue. They want their companies to be thriving.
So, at one point we had a conversation. We were talking about what is their magnetic north that has distracted them from the true north of entrepreneurship, of running their business and all that. What is that distraction? What is that situational objection which stops them? If you were to give them what they wanted emotionally, what they needed logically, what stops them? What blocks them from taking that on or from?
No, and it's funny because I wrote a blog about this. It's called "When Your Innovation Misses the Mark." So a lot of times I can identify the problem, but my customer, prospect, whoever, they don't recognize it's a problem. They don't recognize it's a problem. And so that situational objection is like, I think we're good right now.
Yeah.
Right. And like I told you earlier, you got to be proactive with your innovation. If you're responding to external stimuli, you're too late.
Yeah.
And so if I'm telling you, you need to be dialing in your customer experience and employee experience proactively, and you're just like, nah, we're good right now, you're going to be behind. You're going to be always reacting to the environment. And so that's one of them. I think so. In the same vein, it's just not recognizing that the time is of the essence, and you should do something right now. It's always better to be proactive, and some people are just not like that. They're just not wired like that because innovation does involve some uncertainty and some risk, and they're just risk adverse. And so,
is it a sense of urgency? Is it a courage in the face of terror? Like what?
We're not talking about jumping off a cliff or anything.
No, I mean, one of the things I find is that this lizard brain evolved to, stop you from, leaping the wrong way during a forest fire and burning to a cinder, to getting bit by a snake and dying, to that's what we evolved. There's this great book, Why Buddhism is True, I think, is I'm probably messing up the title, but he talks about that like our brain evolved to do that. And it hasn't really evolved since that. So you're like, so you're sitting there being like, oh my God, it's just a subway, man. Take the next one. It's not like but your brain is like, oh my God, it's like, I'm about to fall off a cliff. And so is it that terror of making the wrong choice, or is it the lack of a sense of urgency? What is it?
Yeah, no, and that's a great question, Devin, because I think I've seen it as that, right? They're just scared to pull the trigger. They know they need it, but things are going okay. We don't want to rock the boat right now. I've seen that. But I've also seen sort of just complacency.
Yeah.
Right. We don't need to do anything because everything is a-okay. Our revenue numbers just came in and we're doing great.
Yeah.
Right. They don't have the foresight or don't choose to look forward enough or project enough to make a decision on that. Yeah. I mean,
what is that tied into? Is that because they don't see the ROI on it? Is it because they're not losing enough money yet?
Yeah.
Is it,
well, yeah. So
like, is it the last time somebody did this? It was a disaster. I mean, that's one thing I used to find in colleges. Like every time we came up with something innovative, like everybody would just be like, they roll their eyes, like, oh my God, another one of these. This is gonna be the whole direction of the campus for about a year and a half, and then it's gonna go nowhere, and I'm gonna waste it all this time. I don't get paid enough to do this, man. Can I please leave? And I'd be like, that's such a crappy way of looking at it. And then I went through like 3 or 4 of those, and I was like, oh, I see.
No, you're absolutely right. And that's why we've done, I think, a decent job in providing those metrics, right? We can show 25 to 300% increase in revenue because of the work that we do. And, putting metrics around innovation has historically been difficult, right? Like really like showing that this innovation has produced this.
Yeah.
Because managers, directors, CEOs, they'll point to something that they did in a minute, right? We did this. It's like, well, no, you kind of was a part of the innovation program. No. We did something operationally. That was the result of the innovation that we came up with, right?
It's
So that is why I have, because I actually pushed against that for a long time, Devin, coming up with metrics that will support what we do. But I found that it was necessary. Some people have to see numbers. Some people have to see that, well, we've been able to turn, your sort of dysfunctional teams into high performing ones, right? And show the value in that, show the value in increased revenue, like show that and not be, I think that's, now that I'm thinking about it, sort of a imposter syndrome within my business, right? Like I was a little uncomfortable telling people how good I was at it, right?
Yeah.
But working through,
well, it sounds like you're bragging until
you
back it up.
Exactly. I have to do something to get your attention, because if I just tell you how good I am, I think that's bragging. But if I show you, okay, this is the problem that you have, and this is what we've done in the past. Yeah. Hey,
these are the 5 times we've done it, and this is the output.
Exactly.
And they literally, other than the fact that their name is Mary and not Jane, it's the same thing. Right. So Right. Yeah. So I have become a big proponent for showing value, right? Showing value. And not just showing value for the sake of showing value. It's like you said, showing the value as a result of solving a problem. Right? Solving a problem that they have. Let's tie that value to the problem. Let's just not say we're doing great work. Let's tie it to that problem. Let's tie it to that pain point. That's been working good for us. So, when you look at the other people doing this type of work, or you go head to head and they're trying to bring in an innovation consultant, and it's between you and somebody else. How are you different than somebody else? Like, why would somebody choose your team versus, some other team?
Sure. The idea and the thoughts around innovativeness are kind of different. People's like, okay, innovativeness. What is that? So I can come at them from a different perspective. And then the other thing is like, we're really focused on those two areas, right? Employee experience and customer experience. And I don't always talk about those things, but that's in the essence and DNA of Stratascension, right? Like we're focused. So I was in a bid situation
the
where
customer value proposition versus the employee value proposition.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. That's where I'm going. And I was saying that I was in a bid situation, and it was another innovation type company. And actually, you know about this, that hackathon thing.
Oh yeah.
The hackathon thing, right? And we talked about it, and I was like, you know what, I should still just kind of do. But then I started thinking, that's not in my lane, right? And it wasn't even when I talked to you about it. I was kind of doubtful because that's not. I mean, it's kind of in the innovation lane, but it doesn't have anything to do with employee experience or customer experience. It's just innovation. A hackathon is a broad view of innovation in my perspective. But
I would challenge you on that, because one of the things I've discovered about hackathon, as soon as I discovered because I had looked at hackathons as like I'd heard about them, but I didn't know. And then I was tasked with doing one, and I put on my consulting hat, having worked at Capgemini, and I mean, I only like my entire career there was. It's Saturday morning, I get a call from my boss. Hey, I need you to go up to Hartford, Connecticut. You're now our desktop as a service expert. How much do you know about desktop as a service? I'm like, well, I'm Googling it right now. I've never heard of the term. And they're like, well, you better figure it out, because in 48 hours, you're presenting as our expert. And I'm like, that is so unfair, man. But like, and then you have to like, all right, now you got to figure out, what do they need? What do they want? What is going on? So I sat down, and we were looking at the person sponsoring this, and we realized that what it was a recruiting device. What they were having a problem with was that no coders wanted to work at their organization. And the coders who wanted to work at the organization had no business acumen. So then we developed a hackathon that was a combination that basically showed them how fun it was to work on problems in that industry. Helped the recruiting staff identify smart people, and then forced these kids to solve problems using coding, but then partner with a business person and create a business case on it, so that you could highlight the people who had a business acumen, who were risk takers, but weren't such risk takers that they failed, because we had different level. So we structured it that way. And then we put in there a whole set of mentorship where people from the staff would be unlocked as power-ups based off of what you achieved in the hackathon. And that employee value proposition, they was super felt like they were providing value, and they were able to find people that were going to be on their team.
Nice.
And so when you look at it from that perspective, because innovatively, these were problems that they actually had in their organization. And we were like, okay, so how do you solve this using chatbots? How do you solve this? We had a matrix environment where we did with it. And then we let the kids choose between. When you look at hackathons from I wish I'd have this conversation with you, because it is very much a product innovation and a business innovation, and an employee. It's a customer experience, and like you can build them any way you want to be, and where you really would have brought like a lot of value into that, because you just focus on. Because I focused it less on customer. I didn't really have a customer. Experience. There was an employee value proposition angle in there, but it was more about solving problems of the organization and making it interesting to them, so that they would, because this was a bank, and this was at the point in time where banks were the evil empire, and Fang was the coolest kids on the block. Everybody wanted to work at Facebook and Netflix. Nobody wanted to work at a bank, and they were like, "No, I can't I cannot recruit anybody. So we take it on, basically.
Yeah. No, and I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying, and I guess it, like to your point, right? It was innovation, but it had some other sort of agendas going on with the recruiting, and it was solving some problems. But I think from my perspective in Stratascension, we're looking at it very focused. There isn't any other agendas. And like I was talking to a customer the other day, like we don't bring any agendas other than innovativeness to a relationship, right? We're not trying to turn you into an innovation company, right? We want you to be innovative, but we're not trying to bring any other agendas. And funny thing about that hackathon, the company that won it, they want to partner with me. They want to partner with me. So I may be calling you on that. And thinking,
I mean, I think that's because of the value. I mean, happy to, obviously, but I think the reason why they want to partner with you is because of the value Stratascension is bringing from an innovativeness perspective, right? That rigor that you're talking about. And I found this to be in startups that like I have a very strong point of view. If you haven't noticed,
really.
Yeah. But what I value is I really value when people push back and they're not like, okay, well, obviously Devin knows. And I'm like, no, I don't, man. I just have a strong opinion. You know, like I'm not really, like I think this is really true until somebody proves me wrong. And then I'm like, oh, you know what? I was completely freaking wrong. So now we're going in this other direction. And I've had a couple times where I had this team and they were creating Peloton for boxing.
Wow. Yeah.
And I was trying to explain to them, we were talking about their customer set, and they're like, we want to sell this to gyms. And I'm like, dude, dead man walking. Gyms are dead.
Yeah.
You need to understand that this product is actually going to kill off gyms because everybody is going to bring it and they're going to have a home gym and they're going to put it in their home gym and they're not going. And I can't remember what his role was there. He was like a CFO or he wasn't the chief product officer, but he was one of the top members of the team. And he's like, no, I don't want to run a company whose business is killing off other companies. Like I don't want to be the nail in the coffin. We want to figure out how to enfranchise gyms. How do we do that? How do we use our product to enfranchise gyms? And they pivoted their product based off of that. And I got in some really heated arguments with him. And then I realized, well, hey, it's not my freaking company.
Number one.
But B, if somebody has that strong, like I have so much respect for him because I was an authority figure. I'm running this program with 25 years of experience. He's some college kid. And here he is stepping toe to toe with me and be like, no, Mr. Voorsanger, you are wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how dare? Okay, cool. That's really actually pretty freaking cool. All right, cool. And I will always have respect for that kid. It just blew my. And I love when people have that, like, yeah, that's all well and good. I love the fact that you moved that, but Devin, we focus this, and that I think is why they want you on board. Is because you have a strength and the depth of that.
Awesome. Appreciate that. Yep.
So let me ask you a question then. How do you make money? How do you fund this grand experiment? Like from a business perspective, how do you run these? If I wanted to start a consulting shop tomorrow, how do I charge for this? How do I put together that deal in a way that gets people to give me money?
Yeah, I mean, it's consulting is fairly low barrier of entry. Right. If you want to be a consultant, you can call yourself a consultant. Right. Like, so there's nothing, you know what I mean? Like,
sadly, this is very, very true. And I have met many people in the dog park. And I'm like, what do you do? I'm a consultant. Really? What type of consultant are you? Thinking they're going to say, I work at EY, I work at KPMG. I'm like, I'm a mind-heart consultant. Like, a mind-heart consultant, really? What is a mind-heart consultant? I make sure that your mind and your heart are connected. It's like, that sounds like a priest. But okay, like I think priests have already locked that up. You've got the moms, you've got rabbis, you've got priests. They've pretty got that locked up. And then for the atheists in the group, you've got the therapist. But go on, tell me about your consultancy.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. But it's true. It's true, right? And I mean, if you look on social media, these gurus, these coaches, these consultants, they're all out there, right?
Yeah.
But I would suggest you have some depth of knowledge, right? You got because what you're saying is you can, and what I don't want people to get confused with, you can call yourself a consultant, but you got to then set yourself apart, right? You got to then set yourself apart. And so obviously, the PhD helps. My background in operations, knowing how businesses work. And I don't think I mentioned, like, I was a CPA for 15 years, right? So like I know how businesses work, how they should work, financials, operations. I know that. So that brings me a certain level of cachet as I'm talking to people, right?
Yeah.
But to grow it is another story. Right. I had to learn how to market. I had to learn the difference between marketing and actually selling, right? Yeah. And creating systems within my business. And all of that, obviously they don't teach you in college. You have to learn, right? Yeah. You have to learn these things and you have to put them into play. It's one thing, I think we talked about this earlier. It's one thing to learn something. It's one thing to have an idea about something, but you got to put it into play. And the problem that I had as a consultant early on, I wanted to put everything into play. I want to put everything that I hear.
I can do it all now.
Exactly. Right. One thing. Focus on one thing, and that's where I'm kind of have learned over the course of the development of Stratascension is really just do one thing and do it damn good. Like be really, really good. There's value in knowing a lot. Right? There's value in knowing a lot, but to be an expert, that sets you apart, right? And so I focus on every day trying to be better and trying to be an expert in my field so I can provide that level of support unlike anybody else to my clients. And then from a money standpoint, it really ranges. I have, I mentioned the predictive index as a partner. I'm also a partner with a marketing automation company called Keep. They used to be Infusionsoft, so I'm a partner with them. I'm also a partner with another software company called Quantive. They are objective OKR. They help you do your OKRs. They have a platform for that. And so that all helps with the solutions that I provide. And solutions can range anywhere from 5,000 to 50,000. So it just kind of depends. And so that's all good. And what I'm trying to do now is, and I also offer courses and stuff like that. And so those are like passive income things that I've created. And I would definitely recommend as you go into consulting, for people going into consulting, try to create passive income streams. And I remember hearing this a long time ago, like have 10 revenue streams. It might have been Gary Vee who said at some point, but like have as many revenue streams as you can, because while there's low barrier of entry, doesn't really cost you that much to do this, but to set yourself apart, you're going to spend some bread. You're going to spend some money, right?
I remember when I was wanting to quit consulting, like Big Five consulting and corporate consulting, and I was like, what my big plan was, I was going to buy a 40-foot yacht, and I was going to sail the world with my wife.
Okay.
Like, okay, so but how do you make, I'm not independently wealthy. How do you make, what's the business model? How do we make money doing this? Yeah. And I started researching and started interviewing people who were, and this was right as I was just starting to dig into the remote work concept.
Okay.
And I start talking to this guy and he's a millionaire. And I'm like, how do you structure being a millionaire? And he's like, well, you young bucks with your dumbass, exciting companies. Like, here's the problem with exciting companies. Exciting people want to work for exciting companies. So then your competition is the best of the best.
Right.
I don't want to, I don't want to work for I don't want an exciting company. I want a series of boring companies that each shed $100,000.
Yeah.
And then I figured out how to keep the cost as low as possible. I have one accountant, I have one web designer, I have one marketing person. I have one inventory person who manages all the inventory for all 10 businesses. He's got a pawn shop, he's got a dry cleaners, he's got an accounting company, he's got I can't remember what the other, but they're all companies like that. Like not company that you'd be like, like if you were like at a bar and you're picking up a girl and and she's like, what do you do? It's like, I run a pawn shop, and she's gonna be super. None of them are exciting companies, but each one of them sheds $100,000.
Yeah.
And across the 10, he now is making $1 million. And I was like, genius. I mean, who's gonna be like, you know what I want to do? I want to compete and create pawn shops. Yeah, like I want to run a dry cleaner. When's the last time you saw somebody apply to an incubator with a dry cleaner concept? But it was the small, like that's what we focus on, small businesses. Because nobody gives a crap about dry cleaners or Pilates studios or meal planners. Everybody wants the AI startup or the blockchain startup. And from a competitive standpoint,
No, it makes sense. It makes sense. I mean, and that is because no one cares about these small businesses. Like that's my goal, right? Let's get Stratascension to a place where we can actually start to buy some of these and invest in some of these small businesses, so that they can grow, right? They can leverage like the rigor and the support from Stratascension to help them grow, and then as they grow, they can pay it forward, they can help other businesses. But that's kind of the big picture to get us there.
Cool. So when you look at your sizing your market, are we looking at all 27 million small businesses? Are we looking at businesses in the Maryland area? Are we looking at businesses founded by a team that looks like this? Are you, based off of your Goddard background, are you looking at more space tech, more deep tech companies? Like where is your who is your specific observable market, and how many of them are there? And how much is that worth to you?
Yeah. So we consider ourselves a management consulting firm, and so that CAGR, compounded annual growth rate, is like 10%. So that's kind of like our baseline, and I think globally it's like 2 billion, nationally and like a billion. So there's opportunities there. And so while I've been focusing in the state of Maryland, because we have some work out in Baltimore County, and I do work down in Southern Maryland and Central where we're based. And so I mean, I don't know the exact number for the state, but we like just doing some analysis, it's like 50 million for the observable market. We want to grab, maybe, anywhere from 2 to 5% of that. To in the next couple of years, really drive hard to get those numbers. And I think it's obtainable. I think we can do it. Right. I feel like needs to be a couple of things swing our way in order for us to get it, but they're not like you were talking about. Like I don't have to hit home runs every time. Right? Just small, steady work. The work that we have now, we think this is going to be solid for the next 5 years, and so we're looking to, and also leverage some partnerships, right, to get us into some like Fannie Mae is a huge buyer of minority services. So Stratascension is also a certified minority business enterprise, disadvantaged business enterprise. So we've positioned ourselves to get connected with like those commercial companies like Fannie Mae and I can't remember the other one, but we're trying to do these things. That's why I said you can always call yourself a consultant, but the money is going to be spent in separating yourself from everybody else who calls themselves a consultant.
Right.
So if we're able to get, 5 to 5 million. So like 2.5 million in the next 3 to 5 years, I think we'll be good to go.
Cool.
Yep.
So this 2.5 million growth,
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming you're not doing it yourself.
No.
Or by yourself, I should say.
No.
What does your team look like, or what does your team need to look like? Who are you hiring for? What are you looking for from a team member?
Yeah.
Who do you want on your team?
So right now, I mentioned my partners, my software application partners, and they've been really good as far as helping with marketing. I've been leveraging them to really push out marketing and do co-branding with them, so that really helps. So I have an assistant. I have an assistant for the past year now. She's really great. It's funny because I had her take the behavioral assessment. We're very much alike, right? And so we're super nice to each other. So sometimes I have to be like kind of. I was like, all right, let's stop being nice. Let's get the job done, right? Let's make sure that we're focused. So she's great. I have a marketing agency that's a partner. They're on our advisory board. And a sales team that I've contracted to help with sales, right? To help us build our sales systems and our playbooks to make sure that we're churning out. We got new leads all the time. There's a marketing. That was one of the big things, Devin, that I just didn't. I just like, all right, I'm marketing. I'm doing my marketing. Well, how come I'm not getting the leads that I'm supposed to, right? How come I'm not getting the conversations? Because I feel like if I get on the phone with you, you're going to want to do business with me. I'm not having a freaking conversation. Like I'm not having, and it just, my wife was like, well, who's doing your sales? I said,
nobody's doing
sales.
Nobody.
You know what I'm saying? So I brought them on, and it's been revolutionary for us. We've been really driving a lot of conversations and really helping us focus on the marketing is what it is. That's going to continue, but the sales is like, man, and it's just amazing. Like, cool. So that's kind of the team. I haven't really figured out what that junior consultant looks like. That's kind of what I'm be looking at next. I also just hired a social media specialist to handle all the platform. But I haven't figured out. I think that's the next move, like a junior consultant or someone mid-level. I haven't figured out what that looks like.
So you following like the standard like consultant, like
that's what
junior consultant, senior consultant, managing consultant, principal. That type of structure.
That's and so I'm that's why I think I'm struggling with it, because I don't know if that will work. You know what I mean? Like I know it works in the big firms. I know it works there, but for as agile as we want to be, and for
does it? Like that was
that's what I'm saying.
Like you said, like I when I worked at Capgemini, like I literally sat on the bench. And for those of you who don't know, consulting on the bench means that they're paying you and you're not doing any work. You're just literally just sitting there. And I'd call my boss up and I'd be like, I feel really uncomfortable. I just got my paycheck and it's the most money I've ever gotten in my life. And I haven't done any work for like 6 weeks. Am I going to be fired? Like, what's going on? And he's like, don't worry about it, man. It's fine. It'll be fine. Fine. Don't worry about it.
You're an overhead.
And,
right.
Yeah. And then he got me a gig, and and it was like, what? Like, how does that work? How does that business model work? That like people are not doing anything and you're still paying them for 3 months.
That's my fear, Devin, is that I hire someone that's out of one of the larger firms, or somebody just getting out of college expecting that model, and I'm like, no, you're gonna be working. You're probably gonna be working your ass off. You know what I mean? Like to get paid. So I'm thinking about something a little different, right? A little different. I don't know why I said junior consultant, but I think it's a habit. It's a force of nature, right? But I think it's going to be somebody
to run the practice, but somebody who can support the running of the practice.
Exactly.
I think like it's not like newly minted. Might be a newly minted MBA, but it's like I get what you're saying. It's more of the approach of support as opposed to being a thought leader who's running it. You're learning how to become a thought leader.
Exactly. And I feel like So another thing that I was thinking about or playing with from the big firms is like partners and the fact that they have to have certain revenue targets and bringing and driving in new business. And it's like, man, that's a lot of pressure for somebody coming into a new business.
Yeah.
But if I run into somebody in my, travels that may be a strategic hire, I'm certainly open to that, but that's not on like my immediate roadmap.
See, this is where I'm a little bit harsher than you. I don't hire anybody unless they generate revenue. Like the only way I will hire somebody who's not generating revenue is if they're generating product.
Yeah.
That I would, and then sell. So like my whole apprentice program is about, I will hire you and you don't know what you like. You don't have 20 years of experience marketing. We'll teach you how to be that marketer, but in the process of teaching you, we're refining all of our intervention tools, all of our training and our performance management and our coaching tools, so that, and our selection tools, so that we get better at selecting, at coaching, at training you to be an excellent marketer. And then we're going to sell your services to small businesses once we've taught you to do that. I'm cool with that. But if you want me to pay you off the get-go like a good salary, you better be generating $40,000 in revenue via your marketing efforts every month.
Yeah.
And and if you can't do that, I'll give you 3 months to get up and running. Right. I'm not going to give you a year and a half to find yourself.
Yeah. This is the place for that.
And that's what always terrified me about consulting is like, my boss was like, well, do you want to be a vice president? I'm like, yes. It's like, well, your quota is $10 million. And I was like, I've never sold anything more than $150,000 to $350,000 project before. That was the whale,
right? Big deal, yeah.
And he's like, oh, yeah, Devin, you can't bring anything less than a $450,000. We can't afford to service anything less than a $450,000 contract. Yeah. I'm like, are you crazy? I didn't know how I would go about talking to somebody. I'm like, with a straight face saying, give us $450,000 for 3 people to work for your firm for 3 months.
Yeah, I mean,
this is why I'm not in consulting anymore.
I mean, it's kind of like, okay, what are the economies of scale? Like, if that's the conversation you have at a big firm, what about small regional firms? How do you talk about that, right? How do you what are numbers? So like I'm still kind of playing with that a little bit. That's kind of the way I'm thinking about it. But,
so what's next for you then? What's the big, what's the big next step? Or is there anything that y'all are working on that you're about to be releasing or that you want everybody to know about?
Yeah, so a couple of things. We just submitted a bid for some work to it's a study and outreach in the community about, so the Baltimore County, the county government is doing a marketing campaign around housing. They want to do something in housing. And so they want to study. They want people to be engaged. And I'm like, oh, wow, okay, that sounds like employee experience. And we can bring some creative ideas of how do we do that. We just submitted a bid for that. And so that's that part. But we position ourselves to get government contracts, right? So that was, one of the big things that we did at the end of the year. I told you we brought on a digital media company, so we're in the process of a rebranding, and we're doing a whole new rebranding right now. So that's exciting. And with this rebranding, I'm really focusing on the infrastructure, the values of Stratascension, innovation, empathy, excellence, and integrity. So I'm going to be releasing a couple of blogs, well, more than a couple, a blog for each value, just again to set Stratascension apart. And then lastly, what we just talked about, really building out my team, right? I've found, as I work with a lot of these small early stage startups, and I don't know, I've been saying that in our community, when I say our community, the Black African-American community, there's a lot of smart people. They have great ideas, but they go about it by themselves. And I just have seen how that doesn't work. And so I don't want to be that guy. Like I know, like, I can't do this. I can't build this thing on my thoughts alone, my sweat alone, my back alone. It has to be other people. So really finding the right people to get behind it. Like I said, there's partners and I have advisors, but really someone who can get behind the passion and the idea that we're trying to solve these innovativeness problems. That's going to be one of my main things this year. And, my wife says, Malcolm, you don't always like people. And I was like, you're right. But I recognize that, I got to find somebody, right? There's somebody out there, right, that can help with this program.
See, my wife says the same thing, but my pushback to her was that it's not that I don't like people.
Yeah.
I don't like certain people.
Yeah.
I don't like people who are closed-minded. I don't like people who are so like I met some guy and I was explaining to him how like we just moved down here and we have one car and we're trying to get a second car and so what kind of car are you trying to get? And I said, well, I'm actually trying to get like a 70s, like a Carmen Ghia or maybe a 912 Porsche, one that doesn't have an engine. Something that doesn't work. Yeah. He's like, why would you want that? And I'm like, because what I want to do is I want to convert it to electric.
Nice.
And he looked at me like I had just exposed myself as possibly the stupidest person he'd ever met. And he just looked at me and he's like, why don't you just buy a Tesla?
Right.
And I'm like, because the fun is building it.
Yeah.
And he's like, dude, no. Like you like focus on what you're good at. You make money by focusing on what you're good at and paying other people to do the stuff that's not in your in what you do. And I'm like, you are not my people, sir.
Right.
And those are people I hate. Like, and it's not that I hate people. I hate people, I hate the person who can't resolve conflict. I hate the people who think that somebody who's not like them, whether it's conservative or liberal, black or white, are less than because you're not me. And it's like, and I get more refined on that. And I find now I realize that I'm becoming a curmudgeon, because I'm like, God damn those people at the dog park.
That's exactly the name.
You really hate people. I'm like, no, I don't.
Yes.
I just hate those people.
That's exactly the name my wife gave me. Malcolm the curmudgeon. That's what she called me. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe I am. But I agree with you wholeheartedly, Devin. It's like certain people just rub me the wrong way. And I'm a really open, sort of friendly guy once you get to know me. Like, I'm not like, get away from me. I'm not like that. But once you start talking to people, you can find out, I just rather not deal with that one. You know what I mean? I'd rather deal with some other people there.
Yeah, you don't realize how big the world is until you start talking to people and you realize how many people are not like you. And one thing that I like to tell, I was talking to my my niece and I was saying, there's your world, there's your worldview, your universe, and there's other people's universe. There are all these little bubbles and you're intersecting with each other. And people want to pull you into their bubble and say, live in my world with my worldview. Your worldview is wrong. Mine is right. And you've got to have the strength to be like, this is my world. And as the more you interact with the public, the more I find that people are always like, no, my worldview is right. Yours is wrong. And by the way, in my worldview, you're kind of an asshole.
Right.
I don't want to be in your worldview.
I
don't want to living that reality. I'm sorry. Like, maybe you're correct. I don't know, sir. But I like my reality where I'm not a complete a-hole. I'm sometimes I do the wrong thing, but I'm a hearted guy. I like that reality. I'm going to live in my reality, right? You go live in your reality, and they're like, no, you're just wrong. I'm like, okay, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, and what you're describing is, I think it's a challenge with our society today, right? Like, people are just not tolerant of different ideas, diversity of thought, right? If that thought isn't exactly like mine, you suck, and you should go jump in front of a
cancel.
Right, right.
Like, dude, what happened to nuance?
Exactly.
What happened to no? You can't wear blackface.
Yeah.
Right. That's a no on the spectrum. But I got angry at somebody in the parking lot and pushed their cart. Maybe they don't need to be canceled. Maybe everybody loses their temper every once in a while. Like the spectrum of stupidity.
Yeah.
And everybody's got a bad day. Like I can't tell you how many times I see, like, this is why I'm almost never on Twitter, because I'm terrified that one of these days I'm gonna like say something. I once had, you know, they have the profile photo on Facebook, and then they have the banner in the back. I found this great photo of all of these. It was like before, I don't know what point in Nazi Germany, but a whole bunch of people doing Sieg Heil, the salute, and this one guy is sitting there like, what a bunch of assholes, and he's not saluting. And I love that, because it's one thing to say those people over there that can't hurt me because they're away are, and it's another thing to have the courage of your conviction in the middle of a crowd. And I was like, that is amazing. And I made that the banner behind my profile. And I was applying for jobs, and I couldn't get nobody was. And a friend of mine was like, I was like, I don't know if someone got the job. I was like, Devin, did you look at your Facebook profile? I'm like, what? It's like, you've got like Nazi stuff on your Facebook profile? And I'm like, what? No, I don't. Like, it's actually opposite. It's anti-Nazi. Right. And I explained to him, he's like, well, they didn't read it that way. And I was like, oh crap. In today's world, I would have been canceled. Like I would have been full on canceled. And it was just the message was X. People read it as Y. I deleted it. It's no longer there now. Right. Now I have a profile. I have the image from some video game. Video game. But you know, like that just terrifies me, that we've gotten to this point where there's no nuance, and there's no like understanding people as a holistic person. And you know,
I mean, it speaks to, and I think what we're talking about, right? As leaders, we got to have some level of emotional intelligence, right? And I think we're just lacking that through social media, through text, through just words. We can't convey that emotional intelligence sometimes. And I think it's missed. So
I think it's bad product design.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've developed a set of products designed to remove us from the uncomfortable parts of reality, which is dealing with those people that we don't like.
So
I don't need to deal with you anymore. Well, then you lose the ability to deal with uncomfortable people who maybe don't have the same viewpoint. And you know, and it's like I mean, I was really good at dealing with uncomfortable people, and at some point in time I said I don't need to deal with uncomfortable people, and now I'm really awkward with people in general. You know, I went the opposite direction. I think we're all at that point now. We're like, I don't know. I remember coming out of COVID, and we moved down here, and I met people, and I'd be like, hi, I'm Devin. Nice to meet you. And they'd be like, go away, sir. Go away. I'm walking my dog. I don't need to talk to you. People, please talk to me. I was such a lunatic. And it was like I lost this ability to have any type of social interaction in a normal way. Interesting. I think we've gotten to the end of the formal. I think if it's not obvious to our listeners, we've gotten to the end of our formal interview. So let's get to the fun part here, which is, if this isn't already fun enough for you all, what are some like programs that in your travels that you've run across that you're like, not enough people know about this, they really should know? Maybe in the Maryland area, maybe outside of the Maryland area, that you're just like, this blows me away.
So and this is really for like the early stage businesses. A colleague of mine just sent over, Northwest Mutual has, and I think it's brand spanking new, an accelerator for Black founders, right? And they're specifically going with Black founders. They do some other stuff for Latinx, do some other stuff for other minorities and stuff, but this is for Black founders, and it's like $100,000, right?
Wow. Okay.
And they give you mentorship, and like it's full, all comprehensive. I forget how long it was.
Is it global, national, or is it local?
It's national.
Wow.
It's national.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think they have a vetting process. I think I want to say applications are due February 17th, and then they'll make a decision that's going to be made like April.
Are you involved in that at all? or is this just something you were?
No, just something. Yeah, well, colleague just gave it to me because he
Cool.
he knows I work with a lot of minorities founders and stuff like that. And so,
Cool.
and they all need money. They all
Yeah.
need mentorship. They all need support. So, and I have a few that I think are going to apply, and hopefully, knock on wood, they get it. But that to me, for your audience of founders and business owners, I think that's good. It's Northwest Mutual. I think it's powered by Generate, and it's GENERA, the number 8, TOR, something like that. It's Northwest Mutual Black Founder Accelerator.
Are there any podcasts or newsletters that you read on a regular basis that you're just like, this is a great conduit of information or great conduit of thought?
So I'm not. So I listened to I forget the name of, but Sandler. So that's my coaching partner, my sales partner, Sandler Sales. I forget the name of the podcast, but they've been pretty good as far as helping me understand, with digital prospecting and marketing, the difference between marketing and sales prospecting and stuff like that. So that's been pretty good. The other podcast that I listen to, and my wife got me to listen to it, is Shaq's podcast. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
Shaq is funny as hell, man. And it's him and 2 co-hosts, and they're just bugging, just straight bugging. And so it's just, it's stuff that makes you think.
That's the fun, is when people are like, when people are like having, because there's only so much like serious like conversation.
Yeah.
It's a lot of it is just like when people are goofing around and having a good time with each other. You can tell they like each other, and if you like that, a friend of mine, he works at ESPN. He just came out with a new documentary for Shaq. They're similar to the one they did with Michael Jordan.
Okay, nice.
But it's focused on Shaq. It's just came out. I literally this morning I woke up and I saw his Instagram post with the trailer for it.
Okay,
and it was like super excited about this. This is what I've been working on for the past year. And I was like, oh, super cool. I gotta check that out. But it's Shaq. So
so I don't really listen to podcasts that much. I listen to audiobooks a lot, and
so what's a book? What's on your TBR? What book is shining your fancy?
Yeah. So Built to Scale by Marisa Devin. Do you have it? You know about that? Yeah, it's a great book. It's a great book.
I don't know where it is, but
is it the orange one right there?
I've made the stick. Made the stick, good to great. That might be what I was thinking of. Is good to great. I could have sworn I had that. All right. Well, it's not here. Otherwise, I was going to show you how in the know I was, but I am not. I'm not in the know. I have been shown as a failure and as a fraud. I don't have this book. I have. Yeah.
So that one is really good because it's about how, as a small business, you can get the right advisors. It's not about building your board of directors. It's about getting the right advisors, like how you can get them on your team without necessarily giving up your company. You know what I mean? Like how you can like real creative ways of compensating them. So it's a great book. And the other one I have here, let me grab it real quick. Play Bigger.
Cool. What is that about?
This is about creating your own category, right? So if you're so for me, innovativeness was something a little different, something new. How do you educate people? How do you create a movement around it, right? So if it's, say for workforce development, you're taking a different spin on, you're trying to break. So it talks about creating a category for this particular area, and how you design it, how you get practical activities around it. It's pretty good. Play Bigger. Yeah. Okay. That's a book one that I read a lot.
All right. So the last, and this is entirely self-serving on my side, is who do you know that I should interview? That I should that my listeners should definitely have on their radar that we should interview and get on there, that you can introduce me and convince them, despite their better despite there having been like, I don't know, I don't really take this guy Devin, he's kind of a weirdo. But you can help me get him on here.
Yeah. No, Dave Seaton, he was on my podcast before, a customer experience expert, right?
Cool.
He thinks about it in a way that's contrary to what most people think about it, right? Most people think about customer experience is you put yourself in the customer's shoes. It's like, no. He's like, you got to get the customers to talk to you about their, you don't think for them, you get them to talk to you. So that was it changed my way of how I look at customer experience. And that was a while ago when I talked to him. So I'm sure he has new ideas, new perspectives. And so, I'll make that introduction.
Cool. Does he have his own podcast or a newsletter or anything?
I know he's on LinkedIn. He does a lot of stuff. I don't know if he.
David Seaton. All right. Well, we'll definitely check him out. For the listeners, if we find a link to a podcast or something, we'll put it in there. But hopefully, we can leverage Malcom Tyson, Dr. Tyson, to convince him to get on the podcast. We'll have him on. But cool, Dr. Tyson.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for giving us the time today. This has been a blast. I enjoyed talking to you on a regular basis, but talking to you in the more formal podcast environment was super fun. So thank you so much for giving us the time today.
Pleasure was all mine. Thanks you so much, Devin.
So for all the listeners, this podcast, you might be listening to this on whatever your favorite podcast platform is. The community features have been turned off, but there's a link to the community on Juntobot where Dr. Tyson will be in there. It's an Ask Me Anything, but it is more stretched out because he's not going to be in there 24/7. It's not in a time period of time. He's just a host of that community. So as you ask those questions, he'll be notified and he'll be able to answer them, but you'll be able to meet a whole bunch of other people who are all fans of Dr. Tyson and who are all asking questions as well. So any questions you have, if you think we got anything right, you think we got anything wrong, you want to expand on stuff, you want to ask us to clarify stuff, feed the Junto, get in that group, ask us questions. They're all great questions. Be nice. Don't be an a-hole. Don't be the people we hate.
Right.
Don't be scared of challenging our worldview and our viewpoints and ask those questions. We'd love to have you. And regardless of whether you go into that community or not, please, everybody, go make the world 5% better. Thank you.
Awesome.
Juntobot is a company that focuses on supporting and promoting entrepreneurs regardless of their industry, background, or entrepreneurial phase. We offer e-learning programs to teach skills and prepare future startup founders for the real world. We also host a networking platform where we connect people and entrepreneurs from different industries and communities. Finally, we facilitate an apprentice program where we train individuals and employees in different areas such as marketing. Our goal is to make the world 5% better by enabling entrepreneurs to create businesses for positive impact.